The City. Reality Flickered. By Dylan Page. Chapter 3. I'm back at Ms. Quinn's home. My initial assessment that it is not an office proves incorrect. She's placed me in her living room, the largest room in the house, and it functions unmistakably as a workspace. Not one I'd expected, however, but one that I appreciate. Ms. Quinn has a very old-school way about her. A large desk is adorned with an array of monitors connected to retro computers, complete with mice and keyboards. They are practically relics, but they appear to be in working order. Shelves are crammed with physical, hard copies of books, some of which had been removed from the shelves and now lie scattered on a table beside stacks of paper, every inch covered in handwritten notes. A large white board, wiped clean, occupies a significant portion of one wall. True to her aesthetic, the entire room is minimalistic, bathed in shades of grays, darker grays, and muted whites. The only splashes of color come from the book covers. While the furniture is comfortable, it is plain and unobtrusive. I sit on the couch, the table is too overrun with papers and books to find a comfortable spot, and pick up a book from the end table. It's old. It smells old. TechnoCorp Regulatory Framework, Volume 4, it's titled. I finger through a few pages. Heaps of notes are scrawled in the margins, surrounding the actual text. The handwriting suggests that more than a few hands have contributed to these pages. Ms. Quinn enters the room. I replace the book and rise.
Thank you for agreeing to meet with me again, Ms. Quinn.
She hands me a cup of coffee I didn't request, but I accept happily. She leans against the table, takes a sip of her hot water and lemon, followed by a long draw from her caffeine stick.
You might want to rethink thanking me,
she says, sighing heavily. A cloud of vapor plumes out around her as she does.
Why's that?
We're going to have to take some precautions from this point on. Precautions that most would find inconvenient in their daily lives.
What is the focus of your research, Ms. Quinn?
The question comes off more demanding than I intend. She tuts and shakes her head.
First things first, it's not Ms. Quinn. Not anymore.
I receive a message from her that simply says,
Q.
She points at me and I get another message.
Chance.
She continues speaking without interruption.
Second, to answer your question outright would be unwise. As I said, discretion.
How are we supposed to help each other if I don't know what I'm helping you with?
She moves from the table and sits on the couch next to me, leaning in close.
I don't wish to keep things from you, Chance.
She switches to text.
I wish to keep things from them. However, I can assure you that our interests are aligned. We seek answers to a shared question.
For the first time, I truly let myself believe that Ms. Quinn, or Q, rather, can actually help me. My breathing becomes heavy and my voice excited.
You believe me? Was it true what you said before, or do you actually know others who've experienced the same thing as me?
Not exactly,
she messages, leaning away from me now. She looks down into her mug and swirls the lemon around.
I've heard of others who've maybe had something similar happen, but I could never track them down. Some had passed away, others, it was as if they had never existed to begin with. It was as if I was chasing ghosts.
She stands up, goes back to the table, her back to me now, and places her palms down onto it.
I came close once, but nothing came of it. My research was interrupted for unrelated reasons.
So I'm not crazy?
I ask, as if her word would make it so.
That's to be determined, I suppose.
Q answers.
Hence the point of research.
Then when do we begin?
She glances at me from over her shoulder, then hangs her head.
Last chance, Chance. You sure you want to do this? You sure you don't want to just let things be?
Q has been vague enough that I have no idea what lays ahead of me, but I can tell by the way she asks that my decision could ultimately be a weighty one. But she is offering me something I have been searching for my whole life. It's barely a decision at all.
When do we start?
I ask again.
I'm ready when you are.
She turns around to face me, studying me with gray eyes. They go distant for a moment, then her focus returns. She finishes her lemon water and crosses her arms.
We can begin in a few minutes. I have someone on the way. I'd like to see the moment of this flicker.
You can do that?
No. I can't. I have the tools just over there, but I'd be caught in an instant. Those memories are private property of TechnoCorp, but Justice Corp is free to access that data. If someone from Justice Corp, Say an officer of the peace who owes me a favor for a puff piece that made him quite popular with the ladies, were to pull up that memory for us. No one would be any the wiser.
Yes.
I say immediately.
Yes, please. Let's do that. I need to know what I saw.
Abram will need to know when this happened. You'll need to narrow it down to a specific year, so think long and hard on this.
I don't know any other officers who owe me any favors. We get one shot.
I nod, but before I start thinking on it, I ask Q something that's been bothering me.
Why do you keep switching between speaking and chip?
Ah, yes.
She says, sounding as if she's been reminded of something.
Precaution 2, learn to break between mediums.
Different intelligences moderate different feeds. It makes it harder for them to put together a clear picture of what exactly we're talking about. If we're both breaking and being careful with our words,
we should be okay. Now start reminiscing. This is important.
Childhood was 5 years of exponential growth into adulthood. It was a blur. Trying to recall specifics from it felt harder than trying to recall the specifics of an inconsequential dream from years ago. Q's looking at me. I feel pressure emanating from her eyes. Abrim, a broad man with a strong jaw and stubbly beard, busily taps at a retro keyboard, manipulating screens on the monitors. He punches a key with finality and leans back. Ready to go, he says to Q. I feel her gaze reassert itself.
So, when was it, Chance?
1, I think. I think I would have been 1 at the time.
I offer sheepishly.
Time for thinking's over. You need to be sure.
I look at my feet, attempting to think harder, as if the answer will magically solidify in my mind.
1.
I say again, trying to sound confident.
I was 1.
It's not a total shot in the dark, but it is an educated guess. Q nods towards Abram, who starts tapping away again. A few minutes later, he rises and says, I've put the files onto your computer so you should be able to access them without setting anything off. And by the way, thanks again for the article.
I'm glad it's done you well.
Q replies dryly. That's one way of putting it. Abram chuckles. Let's just say that I'm a little tender lately.
Good for you.
Q says.
I think we're through here.
He claps his hands and points at her. Hey, I should thank you properly. We should get together for a drink, maybe dinner. Then just see where things go.
No, thank you.
He looks at her and scoffs, glances around her living room, obviously displeased with how plain and bland everything is, and scoffs again. Whatever, he says as he pouts his way out the door. I look at Q, an eyebrow raised. She waves me off and smirks.
Him? Absolutely not.
So what now?
She takes a long draw from her vape and says.
Now comes the fun part. We scrub through a year's worth of memories, hoping to stumble upon a few seconds lost to time.
Q operates like a machine, her hand pausing only to lift lemon water or the stick of caffeine to her lips. She barely eats, but my stomach is grumbling and I decide to take a break for a snack. Preparing my 4th cup of coffee for the day, I piece together a sandwich from the eclectic assortment of ingredients in Q's kitchen. Despite the mishmash, it's actually quite good.
Don't take too long.
Q grumbles from her office.
I don't know what I'm looking for. I need your eyes.
In a minute.
I say.
I need a minute.
Scrubbing through your memories in such vivid detail, with full color and sound, is a jarring experience. So many half-forgotten things abruptly resurface. There's also a disconnect as I now process the experiences with the mind of a fully developed adult. Looking out her wall of windows, I realize it's now dark. We've been at it all day, but I don't mind. I don't have another shift until the day after tomorrow. I finish off my sandwich, stretch, yawn, and head back into her office.
Come here.
Q says, keeping her eyes locked on the monitors in front of her.
I think I've come up with a way to make this easier on us.
I pull up a chair and plop down next to Q, only half of my attention on the retro monitors. I've been staring at them long enough to last a lifetime. Instead, I watch Q's lips as she speaks, pausing every once in a while to either take a sip of lemon water or a drag from her vape.
Instead of scrubbing through the visual data, I started to sift through the heart rate data associated with your memories, looking for spikes. Now, you're a child, easily excitable. Spikes are everywhere.
That doesn't exactly narrow things down.
I contribute.
Not at first glance.
She replies coyly. Then I'm no longer watching her lips move, but the billowing of vapor as it puffs out from Q's mouth and drifts listlessly through the air as she breaks to text.
Then I had an idea. I zoomed out. I took a look at the bigger picture, and something clicked. The spikes, in the last third of the year, you have just about as many as the first 2/3 combined, with unusually high activity marking the start of this change.
I relax in my chair a little. We had months and months left to scrub through, but Q managed to whittle it down to just a few days.
So we just have to scrub through that period of high activity and we find the flicker.
Despite my relaxed posture, my voice is unmistakably eager, excited.
Close.
Q replies.
Likely a day or two before. I think that period of high activity is you trying to deal with what you saw. You are incredibly frightened for a little over 2 weeks here. The initial fear, at least the immediate urgency of it, passes, but does not disappear, which accounts for the increase in spikes in the last third of the year.
Q begins clicking buttons on her mouse, sliding it across the table this way and that. She types a few quick things into her keyboard, punches a button. 3 videos appear on the monitors, each from the days immediately preceding the period of high activity. She opens her arms wide, gesturing to the screens.
It's here, I suspect. The flicker. The memories in one of these files contains what we've been looking for.
She looks at me and gives me a cunning grin.
We're close, Chance. Can you feel it?
I look at the thumbnails. They appear as mundane as every other one I'd glimpsed so far, sparking no immediate and consequential recognition in me.
Yeah. I feel it.
I tell Q.
Then grab a mouse and get scrubbing.
It's like I stumble into a dream, only it's so much worse because it's real. One moment, I'm scrubbing through snippets of a life that could have belonged to anybody. While the memories are vaguely familiar, I was so young then that I can't be certain that these are my memories, or the memories of someone who had a similar upbringing to me, which, in this city, is everyone. That is until a particular scene starts to unravel and seizes my breath. As the images dance across the monitor, I tense up and squeeze the mouse hard enough that I think I might break it. My stomach churns, my chest constricts. Panic threatens to overwhelm me, and for a moment, my vision blurs and dims. I think I'm fainting. Then, with a gasp, I remember to breathe, taking shallow gulps of air. I think I should say something to Q, but I can't. Fortunately, she senses my sudden and dramatic shift in demeanor. She diverts her attention to my screen and watches in silence. I'm glad the retro monitors only display flat images, conveying no depth, as I'm having a hard enough time watching what I'm watching as is. Immersion is the last thing on my mind. Brushstroke clouds dot a sky of bold yellows and blues. Pastel-colored birds nestle on the branches of a thick-trunked, lush, bountiful apple tree. Barefoot, I chase my batch siblings around the tree and across a perfectly green, perfectly manicured lawn, playing an exuberant game of tag. Batch father sits on a cushioned rocker under the shade of the tree, a guitar in his hand. He plays as good as anyone bred to be a musician. His voice isn't as great, though it has its own grizzled charm. He's playing a peaceful old folk tune. He's switched keys so that he can harmonize with the twittering of the pastel birds.
Baby, life's what you make it. Can't escape it. Baby, yesterday's favorite. Don't you hate it? Everything's alright. Everything's alright.
Batch mother, who looks the same now as she did back then, brings out a large tray carrying iced tea and fruit snacks. She sets the spread up next to Dad and calls us over. My batch siblings rush around me, jostling me in their playful haste, and I rush over with them.
Baby, life's what you make it. Don't backdate it.
Watching this all unfold, hearing Dad singing that song, I know. This is the moment. The flicker is imminent. If I could tear my attention away from the monitors for the briefest of moments, I would notice that my knuckles are white as I grip the armrests of my chair, that I'm covered in a thick layer of sweat, that my leg is jumping up and down. But I can't. I can't even blink. Reminding myself to breathe becomes a mantra. The laughter of my batch siblings surrounds me as we clamber for Mom's snacks. Then, abruptly, I stumble back, falling to a knee. I look down at the ground, over to an apple that had fallen from the tree. I study both intently. Then my attention quickly jumps up. I get distracted by the sky for a brief moment before I'm looking at mom and dad and my siblings surrounding me. I observe the snacks they eat, the drinks they drink. Then I'm looking back to mom and dad. I shake my head and quickly do a double take of my surroundings. I remember the flicker being quick, so I assume this double take signals the end of it. Yet, through the entire episode, nothing changes. Everything remains as it should, not a single thing out of place. No alien plane. No alternate world. Nothing. I sit there, a heavy moment passing, maybe minutes. All the while, Q sits silently next to me. I don't dare look at her. I don't dare face that sort of judgment. I don't need to see it in her eyes to have it confirmed. The realization is already weighing on me. I'm crazy. Despite that, words instinctively spill from my mouth, desperate to defend myself.
This can't be right. No, it can't be.
I sound desperate, a hitch to my breath. A surge of rage follows.
No. That's not what happened. I'm telling you. This must be some sort of glitch or something.
Q blows a puff of vapor my direction.
That's not impossible.
Leaning forward, she clicks a few things, cropping that portion of the memory, getting rid of everything else.
What is impossible to tell is if this memory has been tampered with. Unless we had access to an internal TechnoCorp intelligence, that is.
You know anyone at TechnoCorp who owes you any favors?
I ask, a glimmer of hope in my voice.
I was hoping you would.
Q responds dryly. It doesn't sound like a joke. I stand up and collapse onto the couch in a heap, rubbing my eyes. They feel exceptionally tired after looking at the monitors all day. My insides are being tugged back and forth between despair and defiance. I know what I saw, but evidence has contradicted me.
What now, then, Q? What's our next step here?
She remains silent, and I sit up anxiously.
You still believe me, right? Q, tell me you still believe me. I wasn't lying.
Yes.
She says quietly.
I still believe you. I'm just thinking.
A deep, tired yawn escapes her. Darkness envelops her office, save for the dim glow of the monitors and the city outside. The moon hangs large in the sky, a perfect pale disk. Finally, she says,
I'll need to take the night. We can reconvene tomorrow, hopefully, and decide on how we should proceed from here.
I'm rubbing my eyes again, only this time it's to keep them open. On top of everything else, exhaustion is kicking in, my eyelids heavy, my mind in a drowsy haze.
Do you mind if I spend the night here?
I ask Q.
I'm a little too tired to be riding the cables.
No.
She answers. At first I take it to mean that she does not mind, until she immediately follows up with a firm,
Absolutely not. In fact, we should probably only meet up here once more. After that, we'll start changing things up. We can't become too predictable now.
Who are we hiding from?
I sense my question is better asked by breaking to text. Q gives me an affirmative nod and answers.
I think you already know.
I think I might know as well, but it is only a suspicion buried deep inside the corners of my mind. A suspicion I'm barely aware of, one that I have never mulled over nor defined. And right now, I'm too tired, too overwhelmed, too emotionally shocked to deal with Q's vagueness. I stand and grab my coat, head to the door, and turn to Q before leaving.
What time should I head over tomorrow?
She is staring at the monitors again. I can't see the screens, but I think she's rewatching the memory on a loop. The blue light coming from the screens makes the bags under her eyes seem heavier, darker. Or maybe it's the fact that it's well past midnight.
I'll let you know,
She says absently, giving me a wave without taking her eyes from the screen. I look at her for a moment, pull my coat tight around my body, yawn, and leave. I'm being watched. The concourse is completely empty, frozen in a late-night slumber. People are either dead asleep or not yet done enjoying their nights. There is not a soul around. Yet I am being watched. The hot dog is back, but he's abandoned his joyful dance, and he has friends flanking him on either side. An anthropomorphized bucket of popcorn and a barber's pole, all of them sporting fun, cartoonish faces. Despite standing like statues, their forms waver and distort.
A glitchy hollow, that's all.
I try to convince myself. It doesn't work. Not one bit. A glitchy hollow wasn't all that far-fetched, but 3 of them? The hot dog's small black pupils set in large, perfectly circular white eyes stare dead straight, looking right at me. Its gaze sends shivers running down my spine. I think about turning back, pleading with Q to let me stay the night, but I'm certain I know what her answer would be. Walking home isn't all that appealing either. I'd get back just as the sun was beginning to ascend. I look down the concourse. The cable station is just a short distance away. A carriage would be set to pull up in any moment. You rarely ever had to wait more than a few minutes. I take a deep breath and hold it for a moment.
The hollows are just glitching.
I tell myself, forcing composure. I resist the urge to run, not willing to give in to my wilder, more base instincts. This, however, does not stop me from moving in a hurry. The trio stands right in the center of the concourse, so I move off to the side, putting myself close to the storefront windows. It's dead quiet, aside from the gentle plodding of my feet. As I'm about to pass the three hollows, the silence is abruptly shattered.
Wanna suck one down? Head over two. Head over two. 1/2.
Hey, buddy! Grab some corn. That's better with better, buddy. Better butter.
Grab some corn.
Say something with
Lifestyle. Get a cut. Be bold. Take a chance. Say something with hair. Take a chance.
Chance.
Their mouths move up and down jarringly, their voices garbled, warped, and mangled, speeding up and slowing down, pitch rising and falling. It's a disorienting symphony of incomprehensible chatter. While this reinforces my theory that the hollows are glitching, a wave of dread washes over me. The barber pole keeps shouting out,
Chance.
the pseudonym Q bestowed upon me. This could easily be passed off as coincidence to a more sober mind, but I am drunk on anxiety and high on fear. I bolt. I don't stop, I don't look back. I sprint until I reach the station, just as a carriage arrives. Panting, I dive inside, stealing a quick glance before the doors close once I'm safely inside. The hollows remain where I'd left them, silent again, still as statues, their forms wavering and distorting. There are a few others on the carriage with me, and I'm grateful for that. I don't feel like being alone right now. I don't think I'll be able to sleep the night at my place by myself. I decide to head over to Mom's. I slip in quietly to avoid waking her, collapsing onto her couch. As soon as my head meets the cushions, I'm out. Chapter 4. I jolt awake with a start, eyes wide, a small yelp escaping my lips. I feel a frantic helplessness for a split second before I register my surroundings and remember where I am. Batch Mother sits on the coffee table next to me, gently shaking my arm.
Didn't mean to startle you.
Mom says gently, calming me in a way only her voice could.
Didn't even want to wake you, it's still being so early and all. You look like you needed the sleep. But I didn't know if you had work today.
I stretch and sit up. Mom, the always knowing and always caring person that she is, pushes a hot cup of coffee into my hands.
I did. Need the sleep, that is.
It wasn't nearly enough. I don't feel like I've slept a wink.
And I don't have work today, that is.
Mom smiles, but unlike her coffee, it is weak. Something's on her mind. I don't have a hard time guessing at what that something is.
I'm fine, Mom.
I say, preempting her concern.
I just had a late night, a long night, and your place was closer than mine.
You look tired.
Like I said, I had a late night.
That's not what I mean.
There is a long pause, not uncomfortable or awkward, but long. I look down.
I don't know what to do, Mom.
My voice shakes ever so slightly. I know she doesn't know what I'm talking about, but it doesn't matter. I feel the warmth of her hand as she cups my cheek. I close my eyes and lean into her embrace. Her voice firm but caring, she says.
Then you have to follow your heart. Only you know what will bring you happiness in this life, and you have to choose every day to walk down that path. For many, for most, the path is easy, straight and even. I know that it's different for you, though. The path is overgrown with weeds, jagged, maybe even completely buried from sight in spots. But there is still a path for you. There always will be. I promise. You just have to look for it.
I raise my hand to my cheek and take hers in mine. Her words do not console me as much as they should. I'm still reeling from the previous night's findings. The path she talks about doesn't just seem dilapidated and hard to find, It seems to be an incomprehensible maze with many twists and turns, branching paths, and dead ends. Still, her advice does not fall on deaf ears. I appreciate the effort she is making and try to take what she said to heart.
Thanks, Mom.
I well up a little, keeping my gaze on the floor to hide my tears from Mom. I pull myself together, wipe my eyes, clear my throat.
Anyways, sorry for dropping in on you like this. I didn't mean to make you worry. I'm sure you've got things to do.
Mom laughs lightly.
Never be sorry for paying me a visit. You're always welcome here. Tanya and I were going to go to the market later, but I can postpone.
I shake my head.
No, you don't need to do that. I was going to head out in a bit anyway. I have a meeting later. Maybe.
I think.
It's not a problem.
Really, Mom, it's okay. I just needed to see you, to hear your voice.
Well, you always know where to find me.
She remains seated on the coffee table in front of me, still gripping my hand. I place my coffee down and rise, gently leading her along. I lead her to the front door and help her with her shoes. She is looking down at me as I tie her laces with a mixture of beaming pride and surreptitious worry. I ignore the latter for the moment, knowing there is nothing I can say that would put her at ease. I know how I must look, how I must be acting. I'm not oblivious to the toll this takes on my loved ones.
Say hi to Tanya for me.
I say as we hug.
I love you.
She kisses me, and I'm alone again. Now all I can think about is Q and that infernal memory we watched. Before spiraling, I fall back onto Mom's couch, still exhausted, and sleep another few hours before I leave for home. My door is open a crack. Not a part of me doubts I fully shut it before leaving for Q's the day before. I take an anticipatory step forward and poise my hand over the knob, readying myself to rip the door open. My muscles tense, half expecting to find the hot dog and his ostensibly adorable pals inside. Prepared to bolt, I tear open the door. Eyes flickering in a paranoid dance, they quickly fall upon a lone figure, seated cross-legged on my floor.
Q?
I shout, tension slow to leave my body.
What are you doing here?
Waiting for you.
She grumbles tiredly.
What happened? Where were you?
I briefly consider mentioning the hollows from last night, but think better of it. After my memory revealed nothing of interest, I don't need to give Q additional reasons to question my credibility, nor my sanity.
I went to stay at my mom's. Just woke up a little while ago.
I give her a questioning look.
I'm still allowed to visit Mom, aren't I?
She gazes up, remaining seated.
Yes, that's fine. But I need to be able to find you.
Alright. I'll try and let you know where I'm going next time. Now, I assume the fact that you are here means we have some work to do?
She finally stands and begins to prowl around my small abode. Like Q's home, mine is incredibly minimalistic, but even more barren. A table for meals, a chair for sitting, a bed for sleeping. My walls, a dull, bland, matte white, offer nothing to the imagination. My furnishings and fixings are no less appealing. The only luxury I've afforded myself, the only thing lending a touch of aesthetic value to the place, are my bamboo floors. Q's eyes show no judgment as she walks about. In fact, she appears right at home.
Yes.
She answers.
Both of us do. I went through some old notes after you left last night. Found a name, Alan Cook.
Was supposed to meet with him before my research hit a wall. I called him this morning, set up a lunch.
Stock?
I ask eagerly, ready to start chasing more leads.
Some sort of computer scientist. He's worked on intelligences for CityCorp, NutriCorp, AgriCorp, and, most importantly, PharmaCorp.
He's not very high up on the ladder from what I understand, but he's good at what he does and knows things we don't. I'm hoping he can clear up some questions I have about certain TechnoCorp technologies.
I clap my hands together.
Great. When do we go?
Q pauses and I realize that she hasn't been strolling about my home examining it. She's been pacing nervously.
We don't. That's my job. Your job is to stay here and relax. Take some time to process. Chance, last night, that couldn't have been easy.
I wince. It feels like an accusation, but I see the good intentions in her eyes.
No. I'm coming with you.
I speak with more defiance than I mean to, but I double down.
There's nothing to process. I know what I saw all those years ago. Last night changes nothing. That file is corrupted or tampered with in some way. I won't spend a second longer doubting what I know to be true.
I don't know where the sudden determination and decisiveness comes from, but I stand by what I say. All my life I'd questioned if I was crazy. Despite what we saw, the memory has convinced me that I'm not. Seeing it, reliving that moment, I know that what was depicted is incorrect. Falsified. Every part of me knows it. Only problem is, I still have absolutely no way to prove it. Q gives me a look similar to the one Batch Mother gave me this morning, impressed yet worried. Though, Q does a better job at hiding her worry than Mom.
Fine by chance. Fine by,
She says, holding out her palms, not sounding entirely convinced.
lunch is in an hour, at a spot out in the third ring. Go freshen up. We should leave in a few minutes.
My face goes red as I realize the sorry state I must look, still in the same clothes as the day before, hair a matted riot after tossing and turning on Mom's couch all night, eyes red and puffy from a far too quick and far too restless sleep. I dart away to go get ready. We're riding the cables when I throw the question out there.
Why was your research interrupted? What happened?
It's a long story.
She says, her gaze swiftly darting away from mine.
I think we've got time.
One I'd prefer not to relive.
She states firmly.
If this could affect our research.
I start.
It won't.
She interrupts before I can continue.
All you need to know is that what happened before, the reason I stopped, it was unrelated to the research I was doing.
Her tone lacks the usual conviction. I try to prod further, without outright pushing her to disclose the details.
I understand. But if there was something that we can learn from.
There isn't.
She snaps.
Just leave it.
So I do. For now. Buildings in the third ring stand tall and proud, boasting about 20 to 30 stories, their dramatic shapes and sharp lines blotting out the sky. All are made of large slabs of white stone accented with intricate gold gilding. Vines run up walls, adding a vivid splash of green to everything. Colorful, striped awnings hang over open windows. The streets, lined with short trees bearing plump fruits and olives, are a hive of activity. People shop, people socialize, people entertain, people cook. Everywhere I turn, a new hollow seems to be vying for my attention. There is noise everywhere. Shouts as people barter, laughter as a hollow performs a magic trick, music, usually jaunty and romantic, coming from various different sources. The constant din of chatter fades into the background, creating a monotonous tone. The air is thick with the sense of fresh bread and spices and cooked meats. Even though the third ring is not situated near a large body of water, a breeze carries with it the distinct smell of the sea. Above us all, the structures of the outer ring are still visible, looming in the background. They shimmer on the horizon, shrouded in that dazzling display of lights, appearing to float above the buildings of the third ring. I stay close to Q as she leads us to Loaf, the bakery we are having lunch at, trying my best not to lose her in the crowd. It isn't long until we reach our destination, and though we're a few minutes early, Alan Cook is already there waiting for us. I recognize him from a picture Q had shown me. The bakery opens up to the street, small tables ringed with comfortable chairs are placed out front beneath the shade of a large red and white pinstripe awning. Mr. Cook is already enjoying a large sandwich. It looks amazing. The bread is toasted to perfection, the lettuce crisp, the tomatoes juicy, the meat to bun ratio perfect. Mr. Cook wears a slim suit that has no lapel and a button-up shirt that has no collar, all pure white with golden threading. His outfit blends in with the buildings behind him. A pocket square slowly fades between a variety of colors, now a royal purple, now a passionate red, now a calming blue. His black hair is slicked back and has bright yellow accents, his beard is trimmed and manicured. Vapor delicately weaves through the whiskers of his styled mustache as he lowers a vape from his lips. Q takes a seat across from Alan and I follow suit. He greets us with a large, toothy smile. One I'd expect from a merchant.
Vionia Bristol, I presume.
I look at Q from the corner of my eye. She just smiles at Alan.
I can't tell you how pleased I am to finally meet with you.
She extends her hand and Alan takes it, laying a gentle kiss on the back.
This is my associate, Wingding Dutch. Forgive me. I would have informed you that I was going to be accompanied by someone, but it was a last-minute thing.
Why, not a problem at all.
Alan looks at me, waiting. I'm still for a second before I realize what he's waiting for. I present my hand to him and he gives it a gentle kiss.
Charmed.
I say, slipping in a slight hint of an accent for some reason. To me, it's how I imagine this wingding Dutch would speak.
Allow me to treat you two to lunch. What is it that you're craving?
Q gestures to Alan's plate.
I'll have what you're having. Looks great. I believe my associate will be fine with just a coffee, black.
I nod in confirmation, but Alan interjects.
Oh, no. Your associate will not be fine with just a coffee, black. The things they can do with coffee and espresso now, it boggles the mind. One must not be afraid to push themselves outside of their comfort zone, to experience the variety that life offers, lest one wants things to become bland. As bland as coffee. Black.
He snaps his fingers and points at me.
No, I've got just the thing for you, and it isn't coffee, black.
His eyes go distant for a moment as he places the order through Chip. A few moments later, a waiter delivers our order.
Can I get you anything else?
She asks politely.
Yes, please. 3 sticks of caffeine, darling.
Alan says. She giggles and reaches into her apron, passing 3 black tubes to him. He flashes her a flirtatious grin.
Now how do you know I'd ask for these? You can't read my mind now, darling, can you?
How long you've been coming round here for, Alan?
She says.
You think I don't know what you like?
Well, thank you, darling. That will be all for now. I'll message you if we need anything else.
Please do.
She says before making her way back inside. He puts his old vape aside and starts puffing on his new one, blowing clouds of vapor our direction. Q has her eyebrow cocked up in surprise.
3 sticks? That must last you a while.
I'm afraid not.
Alan replies with a lithe chuckle, puffing away.
My line of work requires intense concentration for extended stretches of time. This will likely last me only a few days. Speaking of my line of work, you mentioned you had some questions for me regarding it.
He sits up slightly and crosses a leg over the other, exuding quite a handsome and striking presence.
Tell me, this interview doesn't happen to be for an article about me, perhaps?
In fact, that's exactly what this interview is for.
Q replies quickly, playing into the man's obvious vanity.
Some of our readers desire a column that delves deeper into the miraculous technologies provided to us by TechnoCorp. Some of us over at MediaCorp thought that you could be a perfect voice for such a column.
That seems to tickle his fancy.
Really? Well, color me surprised. May I ask, what is it that drew you to me?
You're obviously a great mind.
I say, accent peeking through.
To work with so many of our city's vital corporations, to work on such complicated, crucial intelligences. A great mind indeed.
Q punctuates. Alan looks at his fingernails and says.
It's not uncommon amongst my stock for us to work for a number of corporations throughout our lifetimes, but I suppose I boast a more impressive resume than most.
He smiles, looking pleased with himself.
Well, go on, fire away. Allow me to assist.
Q's sandwich sits in front of her, not a bite taken from it. Alan's already eaten half of his, but he hasn't taken a bite since we've arrived. I sip at the drink he's ordered me, complex flavors swirling on my palate. It's served in an intricate, rounded shot glass. It's damn good, but I prefer the more simple, bitter flavor of coffee, black.
I'd like to start by asking a few questions about the chip.
Q begins.
With it being so prevalent in our society, many have often wondered, just how safe is it? Is TechnoCorp aware of any negative side effects that may arise due to implanting a population with these chips?
Alan scoffs.
I'm not so sure that many have had that thought. The chip is a proven technology that has enhanced human capability beyond measure. TechnoCorp is not aware of, nor has ever been aware of any reported negative reactions related to the chip. Mentally, physically, or otherwise.
Hey, I hear you.
Q says.
These are just some of the questions I have to ask. You'll forgive me if I make any unappreciated remarks. I assure you, I mean no offense.
Of course. I understand.
Both Q and Alan take drags from their vapes, eyeing each other.
Has there ever been anything to indicate that these chips are susceptible to the possibility of, I don't know, glitching?
Alan scoffs again, but gives Q an apologetic look this time after the fact. His voice measured, he explains.
No, Miss Bristol. These chips are much more elegant and advanced than a simple hollow. Any bug that might have once existed in the system was rooted out long before you and I were brewed up.
It really is a perfect system, isn't it?
Q says, sounding overly impressed.
One shudders to imagine a world without this wonder. I know your time is precious, so I'll move on. The idea of memories often intrigues people, the thought of watching one's life as if it were a movie, reliving past triumphs and glories.
Yes, a fun idea to think about. But these memories are the private property of TechnoCorp, only accessible by a select few on our staff. While fun to imagine, I'm afraid that this feature will not be made available on chip anytime soon.
Disappointing.
I say, trying to sound genuinely disappointed.
To be sure.
Q agrees.
But my question is more about data security. Our memories, are they vulnerable to manipulation? Could they theoretically be tampered with?
It's an oddly specific and pointed inquiry, yet Alan doesn't react. He sits as calm and cool as ever.
Impossible. The security intelligences at TechnoCorp operate at a 100% success rate. We haven't had so much as a single megabyte of data compromised.
How about from the inside?
I follow up.
A TechnoCorp employee with access to the memories. One that has a way to get past the security intelligences.
Not a single crack on his face.
Unheard of. Pointless. Unthinkable. It wouldn't happen.
But it could?
I press.
No.
Alan states with finality, his voice suddenly flat and serious.
A question about the security intelligences, then, as I understand that is more your specialty.
Q says, mediating the situation.
Indeed.
Q continues to ask questions, some leading to long, meandering answers. Each question seems to agitate Mr. Alan Cook in some way or another. I contribute every once in a while, but I'm not sure the purpose of many of Q's questions. After a while, Alan's eyes go distant for a moment. He looks to Q and says,
I'm sorry, but I must leave. It's later than I thought and I don't want to be late for work.
Oh, of course.
Q says, flustered.
I just had one last question if you don't mind. It involves, ionized party.
I'm afraid we'll need to speak some other time. I hope I proved helpful, and I can't wait to read your column. Nice to meet you both.
He's lost in the hustle and bustle of the third ring's crowd in an instant. Q sits with her arms crossed, lost in her thoughts. I finish off my drink. It really is quite good, and we leave Q's sandwich without so much as a bite taken out of it. We begin to walk down the street and Q absently says,
He's lying.
About what?
Something, I suspect. Everything, maybe, but definitely not nothing.
How do you know?
Well, first of all, that vape he was puffing on, it sure as shit wasn't caffeine.
That doesn't seem like the biggest of deals to me, but I ask again.
How do you know?
Chance. I've been sucking caffeine sticks down for as long as I can remember. I know what they smell like, and that sure as shit wasn't caffeine. I think it might have been Focus 26, or something similar.
Again, I don't really see the big deal.
That makes sense, though. Like he said, his job requires stretches of intense concentration.
Then why lie about it?
She retorts quickly.
It doesn't make any sense. And the waitress, she would have had to have been in on it.
She pauses and leans up against a white wall, pressing her back heavily into it. She fishes out her vape.
It doesn't make any sense.
She muses to herself. Lifting the vape to her lips, she goes to take a puff, but no vapor comes out. She shakes the tube and tries again. Nothing.
God damn it.
She mutters.
Chance, wait here. I'm going to go see if Loaf even has any caffeine sticks available.
She backtracks and I'm left alone watching people as they hurry by. Suddenly, I hear a sharp whistle and I look off to my side. My heart nearly stops. It's the MediaCorp staff member again. He looks at me, then slinks off out of sight down an alley. I'm running after him before I can even think.
Hey, get back here.
I'm shouting.
Get back here. Why are you following me?
I round the corner, and he's gone. I take a few steps down the alley, confused, then I'm grabbed by the back of my head. I scream and thrash before I'm pushed up against the wall. My forehead hits it, not hard enough to leave a mark, but hard enough to knock some of the struggle out of me, hard enough to leave me feeling in a daze. A hand grips my shoulder and I'm violently whipped around to face the MediaCorp man. My stalker. He slaps a hand over my mouth and pins me against the wall. He presses something up against my stomach. I can't tell what it is, but it feels sharp. Shockingly, The alley's entrance is just a few steps away, and oblivious pedestrians continue to file by in a steady stream, seemingly unaware of the unfolding scene.
Who are you? What do you want?
I try to say frantically, but my words are muffled by the man's large palm. He presses the object into my stomach a bit more, and I wince, trying to recoil as I feel a small trickle of blood emerge. He looks at me with cold, expressionless eyes.
Stop. Now.
He utters.
Go home. Live your life. Try to enjoy it. But stop. Am I clear?
He slowly removes his hand, awaiting my response. Instead, I just start screaming. It's to no avail. It's as if no one can hear me. He slaps his hand to my forehead, pushing back and forcefully cracking my skull against the stone wall again. My vision blurs, my knees wobble, and I see stars.
Am I clear?
He demands. My words slurred, a bit of drool dribbling down my chin, I respond without thinking.
I can't. I can't enjoy my life. I can't.
I can't form any more concrete a thought than that currently, my head swimming.
Learn to cope. You have to. If not for your sake, then for your batch mothers.
That knocks some lucidity back into me.
What about her?
I bark out.
Be good and you won't have to find out.
He sweeps my feet out from under me and I hit the ground. By the time I'm back on my feet, the MediaCorp man is gone, swallowed up by the crowd of the third ring. I find Q waiting for me where she left me.
Where'd you run off to?
She asks, puffing away on a new caffeine stick.
Later.
I message back, scanning my surroundings, searching faces in the crowd. The MediaCorp man seems to have vanished, but I need to double check. I need to be certain.
This'll never work.
Q mutters, taking a long drag. As she exhales a large cloud of vapor, I look at it and absently reply.
Looks like it's working fine.
Oh, no, not this. It's our approach. Alan Cook was sent to us.
By them. They knew I wanted to talk to someone, so they put him on my radar. His answers were rehearsed.
That's why he was sucking down so much focus. 26. It takes a lot of concentration to lie, especially when you know the truth.
The simplest of slips, a phrase, or even a word out of place, is often a liar's downfall.
So no more interviews?
I summarize.
Maybe. We'll see. We just have to assume that anyone we speak to has been sent by them.
Sounds paranoid.
I say, a grim smile passing over my lips.
You kinda sound like me.
Q doesn't try to deny it.
A healthy dose of paranoia can be a good thing, Chance. You just have to control it, you can't let it control you. Regardless, I never made it very far by talking to people last time. I shouldn't have thought this time around would be any different.
Let's go somewhere quiet.
I urge.
We need to talk about things.
I know just the place.
Q replies. Dingy isn't exactly the right word for it. Everything is neat and tidy and in its place, but it's as close to dingy as one could hope to find in this city. The booths, made of dark brown wood with seats upholstered with red silk, are dark and secluded. Warm, dim overhead lights are covered by muted red lampshades. The entire place is covered in a haze as vapor drifts lazily through the room. Patrons are quiet and keep to themselves, engaging in hushed conversations, shielded by the tall walls of the booths. Q flashes a sign to the bartender while leading me to a booth. The bartender meets us there with 2 glasses containing a dark amber liquid. Its smell burns my nostrils and stings my eyes.
Thanks, Will. Chance, meet Mr. Basso. You need anything, he'll take care of you.
Mr. Will Basso bows politely and returns to his bar. I look dubiously at the cup in front of me.
Drink up.
Q says, already attacking the contents of her cup.
Consider it a badge of honor for conducting your first interview. This stuff is a favorite amongst my stock.
I raise the cup to my lips, trying not to inhale the strong odor, and pour a small amount onto my tongue. I swallow and immediately begin coughing, my eyes now stinging worse than before. A warmth works its way down my throat, settling into my chest. Q laughs, but there's not much humor behind it. She goes to say something, but I beat her to the punch.
I'm being followed.
She nearly chokes on her drink.
Already?
Then she shoots me a look, as if she hadn't meant to say that. My eyes narrow.
What do you mean, already?
Nothing.
She mutters, going back to her drink. I don't let it slide. I stare her down.
Why was your research interrupted?
Now's not the time.
Oh, really? When will it be time, Q? I'm being followed and you seem to know something about it. If now isn't the time, then I don't know when it will be. He threatened Mom. Q. He threatened Mom.
Q sighs, throws the rest of her drink down her throat, and slams the glass onto the table.
I found someone like you once before.
She starts quietly enough that I almost don't realize she's started talking.
I never met them, but I heard enough stories from enough reliable sources. Someone was going around claiming that they had an experience, the details of which seemed to coincide with yours. It didn't take long for me to track them down and get them to agree to meet with me.
I thought you said you never met them?
I didn't. They died before I was ever able to. Officially, they died of a heart attack. But I'm not so sure.
You think? They might have.
I don't finish the message, but Q nods.
I figure they caught wind of what I was looking into and decided to cut me off before I could really even begin. At the time, I do remember having the distinct feeling of being watched.
I put my research on hold after the incident, not knowing whether or not I'd ever pick it back up.
What we're doing is dangerous, isn't it?
It isn't something that really needs to be asked at this point and was a given ever since Q had started listing out precautions we had to follow.
Yes. Yes, it's dangerous.
The weight of that seems to be hitting her in this moment the same way it is hitting me. The danger suddenly feels much more imminent, much more present and pressing. Much more real.
Challenging reality tends to be a dangerous activity.
Then why haven't they already? Why aren't we?
I don't know.
Q gives me a grim look. I don't know whether or not I should be upset that Q kept this from me, but I decide to move on for the time being. We have much to discuss. I'm curious as to how we are supposed to carry out our research if we can't trust anything anyone says to us. We also still need to figure out a way to determine if the data from my memory has been tampered with.
In terms of next steps.
I start.
We don't have any.
Q finishes with finality.
You heard the man. We've obviously stumbled onto something we shouldn't have. It would be best for everybody if we just let things be. A story isn't worth risking people getting hurt.
All the while, she is flashing me hand signals. I look at them from the corner of my eye, not allowing them to be the center of attention. She holds up 5 fingers, taps each one with the index finger of her other hand, points at herself, wiggles 2 fingers back and forth, points at me, taps at her wrist and moves her finger in a circle, raises the back of her hand to her forehead and mimes whisking away a line of sweat, then crosses her arms and pretends to shiver. I get the gist of it. 5 days from now, she'll come to me. Gives us some time for the heat to cool.
Of course, I understand. That's probably for the best.
Q slides out of the booth and sticks out her hand.
It's been a pleasure. Let's put this silly little adventure out of mind and grab lunch sometime.
I shake her hand, and she leaves me with my still full drink. I wait but a minute, then I'm rushing to the cable station, anxiously rushing to get to Mom's house. I have to check on her. I need to make sure she is all right. I stand outside on the street across from Mom's module, the scratch on my stomach left by the MediaCorp man itching. Through the window, I can see her inside, cooking and dancing about her kitchen, waltzing with an invisible, lost love. A large sigh of relief escapes me. She is okay. I watch her for a while, but I don't approach the door. She looks peaceful, calm. She looks happy. The last thing I want is to burden her, to rack her with worry and fill her with nerves. Lately, that's all my presence seemed to be doing. With a final look, I turn and leave for home.
The City. Reality Flickered. By Dylan Page.
Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying the story. Head over to Seek Back Stories to continue listening to The City. Reality Flickered.